All right, let's get started. We're very excited tonight to be talking about promoting equitable practices with Brainingcamp. We've got Dr. Liza Bondren, an associate professor at Mississippi State University. She works with pre-service teachers, and she also works with leadership as well. We have Kate Rossioli, and Kate is a math instructional coach at Prince William County Public Schools in Virginia. Boy, that's a mouthful. She works with teachers and supports students in grades 3 through 5. And Kate is a PhD candidate in math education and teacher education. So we are very excited to have Liza and Kate here with us this evening. I am going to stop sharing so that you can do your thing. And I'm going to turn off my camera and let the two of you go. Thank you.
All right, well, hi guys. So the first thing we are going to engage in is get started right with some math. So there is an image on your screen of two flags, and we want you to type in the chat something that you notice or something that you wonder. So give everyone a second to look at that. They both have green in them. We see that there might be some 3 equal parts. They're in thirds, which could be tied to that. They're both broken into thirds. We wonder why one might have vertical and one has horizontal. Wondering, are the area the same? They cover the same area. We notice that they're different sizes. Maybe they're different sizes. Maybe they have the same area. They might have the same perimeter. So we created these flags using just the shape tools in Brainingcamp. And one way we can connect with our students is using flags from their country. And many flags are simple shapes like this, where they have these 3 equivalent sections. And so by tying our students' home countries to the math that we're doing, it gives them some ownership and really ties to their context and gives them some reasons to why they can explain and connect fractions to their experiences. Another thing with notice and wonder is everyone can give an answer. Someone responded that there's green in both parts, and that is just as correct of an answer as they're both divided into thirds, which might be using more mathematical vocabulary, but they're both correct. So giving our students opportunities to participate in strategies like this, in number sense routines like this, can help us make sure all of our students are actively participating and have discourse in our math class.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. So I'm just going to elaborate a little bit on what Kate just said. We purposefully chose that as our icebreaker, with the intention of using it as a lens to describe our conceptualization of equity that we're going to use throughout this webinar. Words are super important, and different people kind of have different conceptualizations of words. So our conceptualization of equity, we're borrowing from Rochelle Gutierrez. And through the lens of the warm-up we just did there, as Kate mentioned, because there was like a low floor, high ceiling with notice and wonder, it provides access to all of our learners to achieve. There's no wrong answer. They can connect to it so that they can see themselves in it. That's the identity getting on the critical axis. And then we could also empower them, perhaps with an extension to this activity, which would maybe involve some different creative things that we'll let you guys think about maybe for yourself, for being more like change agents in doing some kind of a social justice transformation kind of follow-up activity. I think that's good for this slide, Kate.
So another thing that we are drawing on is Aguiar et al.'s equity-based teaching practices. So she has these 5 teaching practices that are specific to math and how we can promote equity in mathematics. I don't need to read a screen to you. They're all 5 things are right here. But one of the things we did during that number sense routine was we were drawing on multiple resources of knowledge. It also is giving some formative assessment data so I can see what are my students providing with me. But throughout this webinar, I want you to be thinking about how Brainingcamp tools and the tasks that we pose can elevate these equity-based teaching practices so that all of our students have access to this high quality mathematics instruction.
Awesome. So we just wanted to quickly distinguish between conveyance and math action technology. Conveyance technology, I kind of think of it could be used in any content area. We see some images there that and some examples. And math action technology, on the other hand, is specific to the content. But Kate actually taught me that there are some technologies that could be used for either purposes, such as Nearpod or Desmos. You could use it as a conveyance or as a math action technology. So we're going to come back to this, but in the chat, which do you think Brainingcamp is and why? Do you think it's a conveyance or a math action technology and why? And we'll come back to it. Let's see, what are we getting in the chat? Do you think it's conveyance, math action technology, and why? Both. Math action. Why do you think it's math action? Depends on how you're using it, okay? Why do you think it's a conveyance and why do you think it's a math action? Anita Knight says math action because it requires thinking and manipulating. Anyone have a justification for why they think it's a conveyance?
So I heard some people say, or not heard, but like read some people saying that they thought it was both. So in what instance might it be a conveyance technology instead of a math action technology? Oh, I just saw it just scrolled away.
Yeah, it goes quick.
Yeah.
It looks like some folks also need the trial that might have just joined. If you don't mind, Ryan or Mark, thank you so much.
Someone said it's conveyance because you can deliver instruction with it.
Through your smart projector or something.
When the teacher is displaying it.
Displaying it right on Heather. Yeah. There's your code, capital EQITY23. Okay. Super. I think we're good. Ready for the next one, Kate.
Okay. Yeah. So like what Liza was saying, that conveyance and technologies and math action technologies can be used on both types, many different types of technology. Brainingcamp, if we are using it to display something or taking a snip or a screenshot of a manipulative and using it to present, maybe it is more of a conveyance technology. But if our students are in there and using that virtual manipulative as a way to amplify more than what could be done on paper or pencil, that's when it becomes that math action technology. We also wanted to bring your attention to the NCTM, the National Council of Teacher Mathematics position statement. This one recently came out a couple months ago, and they changed their position on technology to really focus on that equitable integration of technology for mathematics learning. Because I'm sure, as you have seen, there's a lot of push for these personalized learning systems that revolve around rote memorization and quick recall, and that is not exactly what NCTM is promoting with their position on equitable integration. It is using mathematics tools, technology tools in ways that promote and really amplifying and going beyond what can be done on paper, pencil, and things like that. So we just wanted to give you this as a link. You do not have to read the whole thing, but just as a resource for you.
And before you move to the next slide, if you don't mind going back for 1 second, Kate, yeah. I have to humble brag on Kate because she's not going to brag on herself. At Mason, where she's doing her PhD, she's a PhD candidate. The team there created the EQT tech, which we're going to present to you next and use at the end. And it's cited in NCTM's position statement. So it's endorsed by NCTM, which we know is our leading professional national professional organization as mathematics teachers. So I have to humble brag on Kate for that. And I think the purpose of this tool, which I guess we can go to the next slide here, Kate. The purpose of this tool is really to kind of, WWW, it's the wild, wild west. There are more tools, educational tools than we could ever even talk about in our lifetime out there. So how do you decide which ones to use and which ones are going to promote equity in your classroom? And this is a tool that you can use to judiciously make those decisions. So there are 6 dimensions. We're just going to quickly state each, and then we're going to come back after we use the tool or after we use Brainingcamp to kind of return to them. So the first dimension is access. We've talked about access a little bit with Rochelle's framework. So that's a common part of equity is access. And y'all can read what it says there as well as the citing research. Next.
Sorry, I was trying to just get the whole thing but I think this is not the correct track. I will get you guys the full thing so that you can see the whole thing at once and not just on whatever device you're on. So dimension 2 is identity. And in this, we are wanting our students to have their math identity through authorship. So I want you to be thinking about how Brainingcamp can be used to promote identity and authorship through these digital tools and being able to create their own mathematical representations.
All right, we're just alternating here. The third dimension is, as you can read, using it for formative assessments purposes and differentiation, which y'all know what those words mean because you are all educators. So next.
So the next one is on empowering students through collaboration, communication, collective thinking, and conveyance tools. So we talked a little bit already about what conveyance means. So when we want to make sure that we are allowing our students to collaborate and communicate their thinking, not just sit behind a computer and only think to themselves.
All right, and dimension 5 is amplifying mathematical and cognitive processes. So there, we want to me, amplify means like extend. So I guess enhance, right? Enhance, make it better than it should make the learning experience better. Than without it.
And the last one is gaining insight using tools on social justice issues. So this is a newer addition to our tool. We have had some teachers really use technology tools to allow their students to look at social justice issues. So it's one of the reasons why it has been added. So it's there.
All right, so these are our outcomes and agenda. We are right on time. We want to spend most of the time with y'all using Brainingcamp, so let's get to it. And then we're going to go back and look at EQT tech dimensions that we just showed you, those 6, and kind of use it to kind of assess what we did during our time in Brainingcamp. And then finally, we're going to give you some time to plan a draft task that you could use for your class.
All right. So we're going to jump into how we can use Brainingcamp to solve some math tasks. So the first thing is, if you've never been in Brainingcamp before, these are all of the different math manipulatives that Brainingcamp offers. So looking at all of these different things, I want you to throw in the chat what is one tool that you're interested in exploring more? That maybe you've never played with the physical, you want to, or that you hate the physical tool and you really are looking for a good virtual option. Place value test discs, fraction tiles, algebra tiles, reckon racks. All right, so Cuisinart rods. Oh, lots of people want to explore Cuisinart rods, so I think that actually might work for one of our tasks. So we are going to hop in to color tiles. So in color tiles, I'm just going to live demo real quick of what is available. So in the objects, which first pop up, you have all of these different colors, which is more colors than you tend to have when you buy the 4-color box of physical manipulatives. You can click and drag out, or you can, once you've dragged one out and you just click, like I'm clicking on the yellow and it's adding to my row. I can click and drag over these. I can change the color. I can turn the fill off. If I want more than one of those, I can copy that whole section and it will like snap underneath. I can also delete it. I could also lock it. So if you are making something for your students to use, you might want to lock some of the tools in place. Other things to note are you can add in a grid. You can add labels. So this is telling me I have 16 yellow tiles. If I add in a blue one, it will tell me that. I can put it up here, not just down here. The one thing that people always wonder is this workspaces option. So there are number lines, graph paper, part whole models, all available in the workspaces section. Then there's also all of these shapes that you can use, and then all of these additional tools. So if you're looking like, well, I really wish there was a 10 frame. Well, there's a 10 frame in every single one of the tools. It's just here. So if I want to make my 10 frame with inch tiles, I can. I don't have to use just 2-color counters. So there's number lines, number paths, dice, and spinners. So you can change all that and spin. And then there's dice, random numbers, all the things. So we want you to be able to play, but I want you to also show, wanted to show you some of the key things. So we're going to jump in to a live session. So I, as the quote unquote teacher of this session, have created this live session. I'm going to copy this code into the chat. And just like how Mark showed you before, you are going to type that code into where it says share code in the top. I don't know, did I put? So where you see this box, nope. Where you see the share code box, you're going to type in this code or copy and paste this code. And then I will see you start to pop in. So if you want to see the teacher side, you can stay in Zoom, and that will be what is projected in the Zoom screen. It will be the teacher view. But you also have the student view available to you if you want to play. So the task that we have for you is to show 3 times 8 in 3 different ways. We're going to give you a bunch of time to explore this tool. All the different things are available to you. I see some people already jumping right in and trying it out. See if you can come up with a way that others might not come up with. Yeah, Julie, the Google Doc was not correct, but Mark put in our website that I can copy. It's just EQ. That should work. So you'll notice that as people are playing, I can, as the teacher, like or heart or star my students' representations. I can look at them all at once. I can see all these amazing representations that my students are promoting and creating. I can also now message students. So I can just click on the message button and type them a message. I can also just open up this one so I can see it larger. Once you have come up with at least 3 different representations, you can hop back over here to the Zoom screen so you can see these different representations that other people in this webinar have created. I'll try and highlight some of them. I see some set model, some arrays. I thought this use of the number line was interesting. They're able to show the 8 groups of 3 using the different colors along the number line. And then I see someone over here is also using the array tool and then filling in with the tiles. So it's a slightly different look when we have the array tool versus the int tiles that are like selected to each other. And yeah, Jane, this is done from a live session. Julie, the code, let me get you the code again and put it at the top of the chat for you. If you type this code into the share code option when you first log in, then you will get into this space with everybody who is drawing. Ooh, someone used the drawing tools to create it, because as a teacher, like as a student, you are having all this choice in all these different tools that are available just within color tiles. The recognize feature will, like it's the same thing as these things. So I can star and heart and thumbs up. So in my student view, which is here, it's not going to show up because I went to flip, but you should be able to get the feedback, because then that's what the recognize feature is for. All right. Well, I can tell many of you had a lot of fun playing. If you want to continue playing, please do so. Otherwise, we are going to actually move to thinking about how this activity fits within the EQ Tech dimensions that we've just talked about. Did you want to say something else, Liza?
I'm sorry. I was having fun playing. I'm sorry. So many things. So now we're going to transition into what it says on the slide here. We're going to assess, analyze, and explain. So like with a rubric, there's different gradations of quality. So like low to high, and then there's the different dimensions. So we're going to kind of go down those dimensions and say like, okay, could be more or less in each of these different dimensions, essentially.
So before we move on, I want to answer Erin's question because I think it might help us as we're analyzing. Erin was asking, what's the difference with just creating a code for students to do whenever versus the code for the live activity? And the code for students to do whenever is kind of more of an asynchronous option. It might be for them to do an independent work. But the live allows you to be doing this whole class facilitation. So if all of my students are doing this task, I, as the facilitator, as the teacher, can see all the things that my students are doing at the same time. So I can highlight different student responses. Say my goal, even though I didn't tell you what my goal was. Maybe my goal was that we were talking about how 3 times 8 is the same thing as 8 times 3. That we're talking about the commutative property. So I might pull up and highlight number 3, which has the 8 groups of 3. And then I might want to highlight number 7, which has 3 groups of 8. And by having all of that happen in that live session, I have access to all the students' work that I can use to create, to do that, which you wouldn't be able to do within a regular session. You would have to teach the children how to save their work and upload it somewhere else. And we're actually going to do that in the next activity. So you'll see kind of the feel as a student of the difference between the live versus the regular shared. All right. So this is just a refresher. This is the whole thing all together. The difference in creating is, I'll show you when we get there, the difference. It's just a different body.
All right, so reflecting on the experience you just had there, and we just put in the chat a link to a larger version of the different 6 dimensions of EQT tech. We'd like you to put in the chat, which dimensions do you feel were highlighted in the activity you just engaged in, the task, and why?
And I'm going to leave this screen up so that way you can refer back to them. I see someone saying all of them. Number 2, thinking about the UDL. Yeah, so like number 5, we're going to amplify because we have that number line, which is probably easier than like that physical number line. And then because the tiles actually fit in the number line, which is different than like having just an open number line and you're like jumping and they're not equal jumps and all things like that. Definitely formative assessment and differentiation, which is why I want to address that other question earlier, because I can immediately provide feedback as a teacher, right? We talked, some people said, yeah, authorship, because you had choice between, like, even within color tiles, like I trapped you in color tiles, but people were using the array tool, they were using the number line tool, you could use the number path tool, you were drawing pictures, so you still had that choice in how you wanted to represent it. And if you look at this mashup of everyone's ideas, there's almost none that are exactly, I don't think there's anything that's, maybe this one rectangle is present on many of them. But once people did that one red 3 rows of 8, you bounced around into all these different other ideas.
So maybe that's differentiation too, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, are we ready to move on to our next question? All right, so then we want you to be thinking about what might be some areas of growth.
And we'll use the chat again and then just kind of go through. So out of those dimensions, Kate, maybe we want the dimensions again.
Oh,
so
yeah.
what were some maybe of the areas of growth?
Yeah, so some of you even said that 1 through 5 were available, but was there one that maybe like, yeah, it was there, but it wasn't like excellent? Yeah, Heather, because you're all in like literally some of you are in different countries, right? Like, mhm. So maybe adding that extra level of differentiation. Number 4, because we're practicing the tools. All right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because like where it was really good on the authorship because they all have their own device and they can then it's like, there's that affordance, but then there's a constraint that they're not collaborating as much,
Mm-hmm. So these are some of the things that we were thought about. Dimension 4, there was not really a lot of opportunity for collaboration, just like you guys said. But if you were in your classroom, you can easily address this issue. You're not in different spaces across the room and no breakout rooms. So in your classroom, you can pair students together doing the same task on their own devices. Or another strategy is 2 students, 1 device. So you can have 1 student with the device or 1 student's device, but they're working on the task together. And Ryan's saying you can even put 3 students on 1 computer. So allowing them to have that collaborative piece. Or you have 3 minutes to try it on your own. Now you're going to share your strategies with someone else to see what's same and what's different between the strategies you came up with. So those are just some strategies. I see some other strategies in the chat of how we can address dimension 4. Dimension 6, no one really said that it addressed that, right? This one does not really address any social justice issues because it's just a naked number. It doesn't provide space to address social justice issues or make a culturally relevant problem. So not to say that social justice and culturally relevant problems are the same thing, but one way we can amplify this task a little bit more is if we did it within a more culturally relevant word problem that addresses the interests of the students in our classroom.
All right, and I'm just segueing. Let's try a different tool.
All right, so one of the things that you said is that you've had lots of opportunities for authorship, but we still trapped you in color tiles. So what if you had an option to do anything? So what we want you to do is go back to Brainingcamp and this session. Yeah, I know it. Okay. Go back to Brainingcamp.
When you're ready to go live.
Yeah, thanks.
If you go back to that first tab you had open, that should take you back to the Manipulatives homepage.
Yeah, it's just mad at me now. It's fine. The problem is we have Brainingcamp for our school division, so I have to make sure I'm in like the right account. So I'm trying to do it right. Okay, but you guys can go into, you know what Brainingcamp looks like? It looks like this. Sorry. With all the different manipulatives. We want you to choose a manipulative that shows 3 times 8 in a different way. And what we want you to do is paste your work into this Google Doc. Liza just put it into the chat. Steal slide. If you need to add more slides, add more slides. But we want you to, yeah, I see lots of people are popping in. Create 3 times 8 with any tool you want and share it in this slide deck. And if this would load, because it's now spinning, I will show you how to, oh, I put it on the slide so I didn't have to worry about the technology. Sorry for making you dizzy at the moment. You'll see this button once you're in the manipulative that says share. And then you're going to click on copy image. Once you click on copy image, it saves to your like clipboard. So then all you have to do is paste, do a control V or right click paste, and it will paste your representation into the Google Slides. So if once you see this blue share button, this box will pop open, and then you'll be able to copy and put it in the Google Doc. So we'll give everyone a few minutes to do that. I see some representations are already coming in here. We would ask that you try and choose a slide that someone else hasn't chosen so that we can see everyone's different representations. And Liza just put in the chat what we asked you to do because I'm now on the slide deck so we can see everyone's representations. Once you have done one, you can look at the slides for everybody else's too. At least there is not a code for this one. We are just giving you free reign to choose any tool you want to represent 3 times 8.
My thinking here was like, if you were going to do this in your class, which tool would you use and why? Thinking maybe of the EQT tag and how you want to maximize those dimensions as much as possible. Is color tiles the best way to represent it? Or are there other ways? Wow, we've got some creative folks here.
See some hundreds chart. I was actually just thinking this. That was the one that I randomly clicked on. So using the number line tool, you might consider that tool that you were interested in exploring more. Could you fit that to make 3 times 8? Someone tried the Reckon Rack, the hundreds board. Ooh. Oh, this must be the Cuisinart rods. So someone did try the Cuisinart rods. And the number line tool. That's cool. There's more Cuisinart rods showing it both ways. So this would be a really cool representation to show the community property again, because we have the 3 groups of 8 and then the 8 groups of 3 on the bottom. So that's really cool. Someone used pattern blocks. So while people are still playing, there was a question on the different how as a teacher you would share something. So say I want to share this random hundreds board that is, let's go 8, 16, 24. Maybe this is what I wanted to share with students. I want to launch a live. I'm going to click on the live button. It gives me an option to click start to go live, and it will give me a code to give to my students. If I, however, want to just share this with my students for them to interact with on their own, I would click on share and click on share code. Then this gives you a link or a code to give to your students that wouldn't be live where you could see everybody, but would allow them to work like in a center or however you want to do it. If you wanted to do it on their own time. So it's just which button you click on, whether it's live or share. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, well, thank you guys for engaging with all of these different things. It's cool. They're using like the shapes on top of the hundreds chart. All right, we gotta move on though. So
So we'd like to pose the question, the task that you just created there, does the version that you created change the ways that you would evaluate the task? What might you need to do to ensure that you're meeting more of these different dimensions? So were you able to address some of the areas of growth the way that you represented it with a different tool? In doing so, did you lose any of the strengths that we had with the color tiles? So of course, we're kind of like always like weighing these different like I said, affordances and constraints. So I guess the question in the chat, using a different tool, were you able to maybe enhance any of the dimensions? I noticed like just in using the slides, that kind of enhanced dimension 4 maybe, because we were able to see each other's. So that was a little bit more collaborative for me. I don't know. Kate put the question in the chat. What changed in the dimensions as we changed the structure? Because we know as teachers, like we can modify our lessons. So of course, we're always trying to tweak things. How did the tweaks maybe enhance some of these?
Yeah, Patrick, I think you bring up a good point too, that each tool can be tooled to meet all the dimensions, and maybe some are more other than others. Like maybe I can meet all 5 or 6 of them, but one is way more based off of how I'm using it versus a different one. Mark is sharing that he had more agency because he got to choose the tool this time. So before I made you all choose color tiles, but now you had choice of any tool, and you guys came up with some really amazing and creative representations for the same exact problem. But now you had the freedom to go and choose anything. So we have all of these different charts and reckon racks and pattern blocks, number line tools, Cuisenaire rods, like all of these options. However, and we might have gotten some more collaboration. However, I feel like as the facilitator, maybe I did not have as much access to formative assessment data and feedback because it was more public. I would not probably give the same feedback on a Google slide deck that I would within the Brainingcamp live situation, because that is more like one-to-one student. If I put it on a Google slide deck, then everyone can see that feedback, and that might not be something that I want to really show to everybody. All right, we are going to move on to some tips and tricks. And as we are sharing our tips and tricks, we want you to share your tips that you have to share for some of our newer Brainingcamp users in the chat. So I will start, and I am going to share hundreds. The base sum blocks are one of my favorite tools because I think that it's one of the virtual manipulatives that really truly amplifies what can be done here versus the physical base sum blocks. I truly believe that students need physical, concrete manipulatives, but sometimes the virtual gives us something different. So if I'm trying to subtract these two numbers, so I have 126 and I want to subtract 39, how might I be able to do that? Now, there might be some count up ways or anything, but if I'm trying to like teach my students the traditional algorithm, well, I can't take 9 away from here because there's not enough. So I could just move this over and it separates itself. So now I can remove the 9. Now, if I want to take 3 tens away from 1 10, I don't have enough 10s, but I can take this one from over here, drag it here, and it breaks it apart for me so that I can take away those 3 10s. And that leaves, there's my 3 10s from before. So then I can see how many I have left by having that kind of movement and it expanding into those different things, which is something that unless you have those ones that snap, those base 10 blocks that snap together, it can be a tedious process for that exchanging. So having the students explore that with Brainingcamp and virtual manipulatives helps amplify that structure without it taking far too long, and then they have lost why they're doing it. So putting that focus of why I'm doing it into play.
Okay. And then I'm gonna put my link in the chat for my my
Yeah, I
favorite.
can put this in the chat too.
Yeah.
But this one was the one that I just did.
And then Kate, will you go to mine so they can see it?
I
Because you're
will.
driving, right? Yeah. Thank
Yes.
you.
I just want to answer Christina's question.
Sorry.
This chart right here is in Brainingcamp. It's in the workspaces section, and I clicked on place value. So that mat already came up when I clicked on the place value workspace. Alrighty. So then Liza put in this one.
All right, so if you're middle or high school math teacher, I'm sure this looks familiar to you. This would be used for solving equations. So I started with the tool called algebra tiles, and then I went to the shapes, that middle thing on the left. Yeah, thank you. And I just made the shapes like two squares. You can make things layered. So like what's in the front versus the back. So I have two filled in circles. Thank you, Kate. Just, this is just some shapes, and you layer them. So it looks just like the hands-on equation kit, which I'm sure some of you have seen, the physical manipulative, which can be quite pricey and cumbersome to pack and unpack and whatnot. And I was just going to say that I had a lot of success with these with remedial students. I used to use these in summer school for many, many, many years. And we would do some remediation with solving equations. And this just made it so that it made it so much more visual for the students to understand the why and the how behind solving equations. So I would strongly encourage this. Yeah.
Do you want me to model an equation, Liza?
I think we're good.
Okay, because
Yeah.
okay.
But I will say if you Google hands-on equation worksheets, there are PDF versions of hands-on equation worksheets, and it shows how to model them all. So there's like a whole user guide available open source.
Yeah. So I mean, basically what it means is that like we can do the X, and then we have X plus 2 over here, and say we have, oh, I made that too far. Sorry. Send it to back. And say I have X plus and a 4 over here, 3. Because this is a balance, I need to like remove the same from both sides. And like in regular hands-on equations, they teach them to like take your hands on both sides, take it off at the same time, so they can kind of practice what that model would look like.
Yeah, we would probably use like zero pairs. So if you notice, like for everything there's like for a positive one, there's a negative one, and you would cancel them out with zero pairs. But yeah, that's a separate session. Hands-on equation.
All right. So some next steps. You have some time right now, but we also have some time for questions. So what we want you to be thinking about a task for your classroom that uses one or more of these Brainingcamp manipulatives, and think about these equity-centered practices in your design. So we did a bunch of naked number problems. We did not assume anything about the students in your classroom and try to create a culturally relevant task. But if you want to try something out, create a task for your classroom that is use these tools, and you want some feedback, or if you want us to review, you can email us and we are happy to look at any of the tasks that you create. But yeah, we just want you to be thinking about the tasks that you are implementing in your classrooms and how we can make them a little bit more equity centered by providing opportunities for inquiry-based learning and authorship and
All the
really just kind of
dimensions.
amplify and all the dimensions. Like it's
Or as
a lot
many
of things that we're
dimensions as
doing,
possible. Yeah.
right? It's a lot of
At
the things
least
that you
like
know is good
seeing the
teaching.
tool. Yeah. Once you see the tool, it like makes you more critical of like what of more purposeful in your planning, I think.
Yeah, because a lot of times when we get to technology, some of the things that we know is good teaching goes out the window. But we just want to make sure that even when we're using technology, we are still using everything that we know as good practices. So please let us know if you have any questions as we're here, because we still have a couple more minutes that we can show you some things if you need it. But thanks for coming and participating and playing with us.